Imagine these guys are inhaling the poisonous gases 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And they have no mask, they have no gloves. If you see any hands of a Swacchata Mitr, you will know the number of cuts that they have, because we throw broken glass into the waste. With their Aadhaar card, when they go to open a bank account, the bank sends an OTP. The OTP never comes to the Swacchata Mitr, and hence he is not able to, or she is not able to open a bank account.
My God.
They are living in a place which is far away from their original place of living. They do not have registration in their voter lists. So the political system is also losing out today on a large community of people and their voices. A big challenge for many of us in the industry is to actually educate people on the segregation. And I think one of the ways which can work, because unfortunate, but carrot and stick are the only approach that work.
Hello, sir. Welcome to Reverse Talk. And here I would like to say to all my viewers is that we have today Vivveck Verma. He is an author, value enabler, and social impact enthusiast with 30 plus years of corporate experience, an award winner for best ethics in business. He's also a successful investor, a startup mentor, and a leadership coach. Hello, sir. Welcome to Reverse Talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ravya. And I'm glad that we are talking, and happy to also talk to all your viewers and listeners, and happy to share some of my learnings from my life and from my experiences.
Yes, sir. So today we are going to talk on rag pickers. Rag pickers, who are also called as Swacchata Mitr, Swacchata Mitr in India, and we'll talk about them.
Absolutely. They are one of the most critical pieces, and I think the words that you used, and in the work that I have been doing, both from a social impact perspective and also from the perspective of uplifting people, I think the journey starts from us dignifying the lives of these people. Yes. And it starts from what we call them in the first place. So many people call them rag pickers, many people call them waste pickers, many people call them waste collectors, and all of those terms. Yeah. And I find the irony there, that all of us in our capacities as privileged human beings generate the waste. Correct. Each one of us in our homes and in our offices is generating the waste. But we associate the term waste with the people who actually come to clean the waste.
Absolutely.
And that's where the irony lies. And that's where we believe, or I believe, that the language has to change. So they are not the rag pickers. They are the Swacchata Mitr. They are people who are our friends, and they are people who are creating the cleanliness. Correct. So they are cleanliness friends or Swacchata Mitr. So that's where the journey begins. And I think the biggest mindset change is there. Right. If people can make that mindset change, I think a lot of other things will start changing.
Absolutely. So when we are talking about these Swacchata Mitr, they collect these recyclables from dump yard, and by 2050, India will be generating around 450 million tons of garbage annually. And these rag pickers who work without any job security, dignity, safety, any kind of help. There are health hazards also to them, and they also suffer the abuse on streets.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So these are, yeah, absolutely, go on.
Yeah. So I was saying, when we say the word rag picker, when you clearly said that we need to change the term. This is the irony. We call them rag pickers. It is not very clear to people that what to a normal person, that what kind of help they are doing. The picture is not very clear who rag pickers are, what they normally do, what is the importance of rag pickers in our infrastructure.
Absolutely. And I'll start this answer by a very quick quiz that I do, and I hope all your listeners and viewers can also kind of, in their own mind, they don't need to give you or me the answers.
Right.
Most of us in our homes have the newspaper person, at least people from my generation who still believe in a physical newspaper,
Right.
have the newspaper vendor's name and number stored in our mobile.
Yeah.
Most of the people who get milk delivered to their homes in the morning have the milkman's name and number saved in their mobile.
Correct.
So my question to your listeners and viewers is, how many of you know the name of the Swacchata Mitr who comes to your house or your office to collect your waste? If some of you do actually know the name of the Swacchata Mitr, is it stored on your mobile? Do you know where the Swacchata Mitr lives? And do you know what the children, if they have children, what do their children do? The answer to these three questions is what will tell us how well do we understand this community.
Correct.
Or in my interactions so far, for 95 to 98% of the people I have asked the question, the answer to all three is, I have no idea. I have a designated place where I put that black bag, and then the black bag disappears. I don't know whether that's a male, female, child, transgender. I don't know who comes, but somebody comes and collects it. I don't know. And if I knew and if I saw, I will still pay no attention to that individual, because that's something, it's not even in my radar.
Right.
So that is the true state of the Swacchata Mitr community in our community, in our larger scheme of things. Nobody knows. Meaning, even today, there is no authentic number that we can say that India has X million Swacchata Mitr community. Nobody has so far, neither the government nor the private players, nobody has bothered to do a study. Meaning, today you can find out how many Asha workers are in our country. You will know how many Anganwadi workers are in our country. You will know how many rickshaw pullers are in our country, but we don't know how many Swacchata Mitr are there in our country. So that's the state. And I want to highlight that, because that's where it all begins. That individually we don't know, and collectively also we don't know. That who this community is, what do they do, where do they live, what do their children do, what kind of material that is available to them. You're talking about very high needs, basic dignity starts from there, that nobody recognizes them. If they are recognized, nobody wants to talk to them.
Correct.
So the first thing that is needed to really help them is to give them that dignity. If all your viewers and listeners today can just go back and learn from my three questions and make it a pledge for themselves that tomorrow morning they will find out who their Swacchata Mitr is. They will ask the name of the Swacchata Mitr. They will ask the Swacchata Mitr, where does he or she live? And they will ask, how many children do they have? And if they have children, what are they doing? If they just ask these three questions and have that conversation with the Swacchata Mitr, I can guarantee you the journey for them to reform their Swacchata Mitr has already begun. And we don't need to do anything more, because they will then recognize it themselves and they will start appreciating the work they do better. They will learn so much more that they will do things very differently in their homes.
Yeah. Absolutely well put, sir, because even I do not know what the name of my Swacchata Mitr is. And tomorrow morning, definitely I'm going to ask him, because all I know is that, there is this time around 10:30 that Mama rings the doorbell, and I do not know his name, but I only know that Mama is going to come and pick the bag.
Collect the bag.
Yes, collect.
So tomorrow make sure you transform him from Mama to whatever his name is, and then save it with you, so that and believe me, Ravya, that for him, that is the transformation that is going to happen. That I have rung this bell so many times, And every time all I got in response was a bag.
Yeah.
And today, instead of getting a bag, I had the person speak to me. That person actually acknowledged my presence and spoke to me.
Yeah.
You cannot imagine the difference that will make to Mr. Mama.
Absolutely, sir. This is I mean, this is an eye opener for me as well, because as far as I remember, as I told you, I have toddlers, right? And they are like, one is 5 and the other one is 7 around. So yes, what happens is when he comes to collect the garbage, right? And I am somewhere in the bathroom or somewhere. So the children are like, Mama, kachra wala aaya hai. Or when you're saying that these are our Safai Mitr and we call them kachra wala. Kachra to humne kiya hai.
That's the irony.
हम उन्हें कचरा वाला बुलाते हैं. Yes.
That's the irony. And I'm saying that if you were to start having this conversation with your toddlers, then is when the transformation has really begun. Sometimes we have these notions that, if I have to transform the, so-called rack picker community, then I need crores of rupees, I need this. And my only answer is that while yes, money is needed, while all of that is needed, but I think more fundamental is this mental shift to happen, that वो कचरा वाले नहीं है, वो सफाई वाले हैं. कचरे वाले तो हम हैं, कचरा तो हम इकट्ठा करते हैं, वो तो सफाई करने आते हैं. So they are the ones who are doing a favor to us.
Yeah.
We have this privileged notion that we do a favor to them.
Correct.
And the only other follow-on question I have for people who I talk to, and it's also true for your listeners and viewers, that imagine you think that you are the giver and they are the beneficiary.
Right.
Because that's typically the terminology people use, that wo rack picker to beneficiary hai, I benefit, I make the benefit happen for him. And my only question is that if 3 days your Safai Mitr does not come to collect that bag from your house, you will know who is the beneficiary. Whether that Safai Mitr is the beneficiary or you are the beneficiary, because you will be running helter-skelter with the smell, with the stink, with all of other problems. So this world that we live in is that, we are the givers and they are the beneficiaries. I think we have to break that norm. We are the beneficiaries, they are the givers.
Absolutely. Because when you're talking about this, if we don't keep, if he doesn't come for 3 days, imagine what we are going to do. I mean, what we'll do maximum is we are going to keep our black bags outside our flats, right? So that the smell doesn't stink.
Correct.
So
that's when we'll truly realize the value.
Absolutely. So, but the current scenario of rack pickers in India, where do they stand in our economic and social strata, as we all know that their services are free?
So they don't exist. The simple answer is that for most of us, like I just demonstrated, they don't exist. And even for, the larger society, they don't exist. They typically live. So if you ever go and visit the community where they live, they live as a community. So all of the Safai Mitr will be living together. Typically, like, for example, I live in Hyderabad. In Hyderabad, the communities in Saifabad, in Gudi Malkapur, in Jiaguda, these are typically areas where the Safai Mitr community lives. There'll be 4,000, 5,000 people living together in temporary shanties,
right?
Because they are migrant in nature, majority of them. They are migrant in nature. They are not local. They come from smaller towns, smaller places where their economic earnings is very, very low.
Correct.
So they come to earn a livelihood into the city. The way this whole trade works is that they work under a contractor who actually brings them from the village to the main cities. And in the main cities, they become like their employer. It's not an employer-employee relationship. It's more a freelance relationship, but they get attached to the contractor The
Correct.
contractor determines the rate that they will get for the material they collect, which may be significantly lower than what the market rates are. And typically, the contractor finds a personal obligation story that he creates with each of these Safai Mitr, either by extending some kind of a loan or doing a favor in their village, or helping them in their village either with a marriage or somebody's health or some building construction or something like that.
Right.
And as a result, the Safai Mitra becomes obligated to the contractor, and that's putting it nicely. But quite often, it also translates to becoming a slave.
Correct. As a
So
Lala,
I work for long hours. I'll work for long hours. I collect the material, and I get a rate that you, as a contractor, determine. It has nothing to do with the market rate.
correct.
So that's how the whole exploitation happens. And then these aggregators or middlemen are the ones who make the money.
Yeah, correct. A lot of garbage clearing is done in an informal way by these Safai Karmcharis, Safai Mitra, who work without any job security, salary, no dignity. Not just that, they are regularly exposed to cuts, infections, respiratory diseases, tuberculosis, and humiliation, harassment. Sexual abuse is most common for these women who are into rag picking on streets. Has this informal sector in any way saved our country?
Well, I think the informal sector and largely the Safai Mitra community is informal in India.
Yeah.
And in my view, they are the one who are actually running, to a large extent, helping and run our country. Because these thousands of metric ton of waste that is generated every single day, week, month, year in the country, imagine if that's not getting cleared.
Yeah.
Meaning our systems will start collapsing. So these are invisible people who are doing that. And in addition to all of what you talked about, that they don't have dignity, they get exploited, 70% of the workforce in the Safai Mitra community are women.
Correct.
But 100% of leadership in the Safai Mitra community are men. Who quite often do not understand the problems that are happening in the community. For example, in my own personal experience, when you go to a community and you start talking to these so-called community leaders who are running these 5,000 people community, and you ask them that, are there issues they're facing about women, reproductive health, menstrual hygiene? These terms are strange terms for these men, and they tell you, no, we have no such problem in our area.
Right.
And I'm saying, for any human being to say 70% of 5,000 people living here are women, and you are saying that none of them have reproductive health issues, have menstrual health issues, have any of these issues, meaning you have to be living in fool's paradise.
Correct.
This cannot be the reality. But that's the unfortunate part, that, and a lot of these men who lead these communities are people who have political aspirations.
Okay.
So their linkage is more to the political bosses than to the community.
They have a good network.
So they are trying to satisfy the needs of the so-called leaders rather than satisfying the needs of the community.
Okay.
So there is a need for this whole movement to become such that, they get formalized. Majority of them, because they are migrant, they do not have an identity proof. So they don't have an Aadhaar card. If they have an Aadhaar card, the Aadhaar card is linked to a mobile that they used as a prepaid card some 5 years ago.
Okay.
They threw away the prepaid card because whatever economic reason. Now the linkage to the Aadhaar card is gone because the Aadhaar is linked to that number.
Correct.
As a result, every scheme that they are supposed to be part of because of the government system, they are not part of, because every time they use the Aadhaar, the OTP goes to that number. That number is no longer with them.
Correct.
So they are not benefiting from any of these schemes.
Correct.
Including opening a bank account. With their Aadhaar card, when they go to open a bank account, the bank sends an OTP the OTP never comes to the Safai Mitra, and hence he's not able to, or she's not able to open a bank account.
My God.
So that is the plight or level at which work needs to happen. Now,
Correct.
government has announced a lot of schemes, but for you to benefit out of the scheme, the basic need is to have an Aadhaar card and a bank account.
Correct.
Both of these need an identity proof. Both of these need a mobile linkage to that identity proof. So a lot of work needs to happen there, rather than again looking at some crores of rupees worth of this or that. I think these simple things need to be fixed. And if we can go work with
how can these issues be fixed, sir? I mean, when you're talking about
the only way is to engage with the community. So for example, if you pick one community and go and start talking to that community, it takes you a few months to win the trust.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, they have been exploited so much that when anyone goes to talk to them, the first reaction is that you have come to exploit us again.
Okay.
You have come to distribute some product, and that product is what you want to distribute.
Okay.
That product is not what I need. And there's a world of difference between the two. So in one of my experiences, for example, a community came back to me and said, if you've come to distribute fancy soaps, then don't do that. And I got talking saying, why are you saying that? And they said, that's because none of you have bothered to come and see the condition in which we live. We have to bring water from 1 kilometer away even in today's time.
Right.
So we are a family of 4. We use 1 bucket of water to have a bath. Now you give me a fancy soap. Please tell me, is that soap of any use to me? मेरे पास सादा नहाने के लिए पानी नहीं है. आप साबुन देके what is the problem you are solving for me? And you give me 4 of these fancy soaps.
Yeah.
I don't need these fancy soaps. I need something else. So give me what I need rather than give me what you have that you want to distribute. And unfortunately, the world today distributes what they have rather than distributing what they need. So that difference will come when you start working with the community. Then you know what they need.
Correct.
For example, recently I was part of a campaign where we worked with one community, and we went and created a platform where 120 children of Safai Mitr came. And we asked them to spend 1.5 hours on Children's Day this year.
Okay.
And said that you use this to paint the future that you see for yourself.
Okay.
And in return, we made sure that each one of them got a pair of footwear.
Okay.
Because we saw that all of these children were barefoot. Now, that is where the difference lies. And then when the community came back and said, you did the study and came back and solved a problem. A lot of people come and give us school bags, but they don't recognize that many of our children don't even go to school. So why are you giving me a school bag? They come and give me notebooks. My children don't go to school. So that notebook then eventually pages are torn and they are made into, things to pack food.
Correct.
So a good quality notebook lands up there because we haven't done the work we should have done to understand what do they need.
Absolutely.
So I think that's where the plight of these people is, that all they are looking for is people interacting with them in the true sense of interacting, not for my page 3 photo.
Correct.
Today, a lot of people, the important thing is I go distribute those fancy soaps, take 5 pictures, and the next day newspaper carries that picture saying XYZ went and distributed 2,000 soaps. The community doesn't know what to do with the soap, so it served no purpose besides the photograph that appeared in the newspaper. That's all.
Yeah. So if the rag pickers or Swacchata Mitr, Safai Mitr were not there in our societies, in the waste ecosystem, would it be the same?
No way. We will be swamped under, like I said, 3 days if a Safai Mitr doesn't come to any one of our homes, I can guarantee you our homes will become stinking pots which we wouldn't want to live in. So they are an extremely integral part of our ecosystem. And what I talked about it at a home level. Imagine this at a corporate level. Imagine this at an industry level. And then imagine this at a village, city, or a state level. Meaning tons and tons of waste is going to get accumulated, and we won't know what to do with it.
Correct.
So they are an extremely integral but invisible and kind of neglected part of our society, and we need to bring them into focus.
Correct. But so why rag picking is a free but critical service?
So actually, to be fair, it's not free. So we may not be paying as households.
Correct.
But they do get paid for the material they collect.
Okay.
And in some cases, some of the like anywhere else in life, every finger of your hand is not the same. So some states, some cities actually have created a model where the city actually pays them.
Okay.
Because they do recognize that this is an important part and integral part. So some places, the urban local bodies, which could be a municipal corporation or a panchayat or whichever, depending on the size of the city. So some places they do pay. At other places, they pay the contractor, who sometimes pays the Safai Mitra, sometimes does not pay.
Right.
And at some places, it is left to the fact that whatever you collect, we will pay you for the collection you do.
Okay.
So your earning will not come through a salary, but will come through the, so if a Safai Mitra collects 100 kgs a day, 25 days a month, so 2.5 tons of material. And, while it's not so simple, different categories have different rates, but let's assume that, it's 10 rupees a kg. That translates to 25,000 rupees that the Safai Mitra can get in a month.
Okay.
So there are different models. So it's not free. But having said that, I think it is more the dignity than the money.
Correct. Okay.
But
the government also treats them no differently, as there is no health benefits. If there are, these people are not aware. Safety gear and social security for these rag pickers, because they provide services that benefit the environment. Because if you see, sir, in somewhere sometime back, I had read in Bogota, Colombia, every rag picker is paid $2 per day by the municipality. And in Brazil, they have made sure that only rag pickers can pick the waste. Why can't this happen in India?
I think the first step to taking any of those things will be the fact that people have to recognize that this is an industry.
Okay.
The government especially has to recognize that, these are the different layers of people in that industry. It's not just that contractor that an urban local body deals with. It is right down to that person who goes house to house or who's on the street picking the waste.
Right.
So we have to recognize that. Meaning, like I said, we have to understand how many of them exist in the country. Because today we don't even know that. So are we solving a problem of 2 million people, or are we solving a problem of 20 million people? Meaning it starts from there. There is no scientific number that anyone can say that we know the number of Safai Mitra in the country is equal to X or Y.
Correct.
So I think, all of what you're talking about can happen, but the first step is to get to recognize and acknowledge the fact that they exist. And the second step is to engage with them to understand what their real needs are.
Correct.
And the safety kits that you talked about is such an important thing. They don't have footwear.
Yeah.
And they are doing all this. Imagine a COVID happened and each of us was wearing 2 masks or 3 masks and staying at home.
Correct.
And staying at home. Imagine these guys are inhaling the poisonous gases 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And they have no mask, they have no gloves. If you see any hands of a Safai Mitra, you will know the number of cuts that they have, because we throw broken glass into the waste. We throw, metal into the waste, and these poor people are going and touching that, their hands are getting cut, their fingers are getting cut, they're having so many injuries. The gases and all the inhalation that they do, their health hazards are plenty and more.
Right. the least you can do is people, like basic common sense, like wrap the glass in a paper and then just inform them before throwing it that it has glass in it. But no, people will not do that. It's like we deal with garbage, but we want to live in a clean space.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about something which is so dignified, that wrap a glass in the paper. People throw in, there is supposed to be a solid waste and a wet waste.
Yeah.
And people throw diapers, sanitary pads, all of that into dry waste.
Correct.
And one is kind of wondering that what are you thinking, that your sanitary pad or a diaper is going to get recycled, reused? What is going to happen?
Mhm.
Meaning, why is that common sense not there?
there.
I think is $1 million question.
Absolutely. And these are all well-educated ones, which brings me to another question, that when we dispose this waste, in at our places, at our homes, it is done in a way where we are not concerned about it, that who is going to pick or who is going to handle the waste later. For example, when you're talking about this dry waste, or when you're talking about this soiled diapers or sanitary napkins, it needs to be treated in a proper way according to biomedical waste, right? The waste with blood or body fluid, this must be treated separately. But usually people don't bother. Usually people throw them into a common bin. How do we sensitize people here?
So I think the big challenge for many of us in the industry is to actually educate people on the segregation. And I think one of the ways which can work, because unfortunate, but carrot and stick are the only approach that work.
Yes.
So I think there is a lot of movement that is happening around making them more aware. And the way to do it is to put an economic benefit to the waste. For example, newspapers in India are never thrown in waste. Because it's a well-established model कि newspaper रद्दी वाले को बेचेंगे. And I will get, even if it's a very wealthy household, they will still get that 500 rupees worth of newspaper raddi. Now that money may go to the maid servant, or the money may go to the driver, or money may go to somebody else, but paper will never be thrown in the dustbin.
Correct.
Now that education and that awareness we need to bring for the other categories of waste. Let's say a plastic PET bottle. Now if there is an economic value that the household sees that they get out of that, then the segregation will become a lot better. Even if household doesn't see it, the societies see it. Many societies have now implemented this segregation at a society level.
Correct.
So they employ a few people who will do this segregation, because then the society gets the economic value out of that waste, and it becomes a self-sustaining model.
Right.
So I think the answer lies in better awareness and creating economic models so that they become self-sustaining. It cannot be by way of charity, because that's not a sustainable model.
So let's talk about child rag pickers. Like we spoke about the woman rag pickers, also the safai karmchari, the men in this industry. But what about the child rag pickers in India? A child rag picker is deprived of its human rights. Even as a child, he or she is prone to unhealthy risk. What are some of these reasons why child rag pickers exist in India or in this community, and what's the impact on their health? Because the consequences of this work on children must be striking.
Yeah. So first of all, there are no men only Safai Mitra in our country. Safai Mitra is a family profession.
Okay.
Anyone who's engaged in collecting waste, it's usually the family who's involved in collecting the waste, which means the man, the woman, the children, the parents of the grown-up men and women. Right. Entire family is engaged in that, because they are trying to find a method to dignify their lives or fulfill that lone or economic obligation that they have. So in 90% plus of cases, the children are actively engaged in the waste collection activity, which is such a sad story.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they are going to school for a couple of hours, they are engaged for the balance time in the waste collection, waste segregation, or in the profession helping their parents. So they are definitely part of the industry. Now that needs to change, because the future generation is getting deprived of what they can do, even if they were to continue in that profession. What is needed is people who understand that industry well. So if these children get educated and they go out and learn what's happening around in the world, they will be able to come back and solve the problems of the industry a lot better than you and me can do, because we don't have the same level of appreciation. But for doing that, they need to be getting out of the clutches of the industry and get access to better awareness, get access to better education, and get access to better life.
Correct.
So it is a very, very sad situation that children are involved in this profession, in this activity, from what I have seen in multiple cities. Some cities, like I said, everything we say, is there are exceptions. Some cities have created models where they do not allow children to be working in this space. But that can happen only in a very controlled environment where they have full supervision.
Correct.
But when it comes to going to people's homes or on the streets, then there's very little supervision. So they are involved.
Right.
It's a sad reality.
Correct. As they say, rag picking is a profession which comes with utterly inhuman challenges.
Absolutely. Inhuman challenges, solving our lives to make them so much better.
Yeah, true. So today's session is an eye-opener for us, and because we never thought or we never asked ourselves these questions which you are asking. So, Vivek sir, no one is better to answer this question when we are talking about rag pickers, correct? What do you have to say? What are the roadblocks for their upliftment? When I say that, I mean that can there be a win-win situation where, a better earnings for our Swacchata Mitr is ensured and waste is composted in such a manner that it will be a gift to our environment?
Absolutely. And I think that is what is going to be needed. If we want to leave the world a better place for our children and our grandchildren, I think that is going to be a necessity rather than a luxury. Right. Now, what needs to happen are, I think, a few things. At an individual level, I think it is us recognizing the Swacchata Mitr. That they exist, and they exist for a reason, and that reason is our lives are becoming better. So they are doing us a favor. So I think that's the first and the most basic fundamental shift that needs to happen. That will, in my view, automatically lead us to doing better quality segregation of waste. Because once we recognize that our deliberate action is leading to a harm to somebody else.
Right.
And I'm hoping that I will become a little more conscious and start saying, okay, the soil diaper cannot go in dry waste and it must go in wet waste, or ideally in a biomedical waste, because this needs to be handled like a biomedical waste.
Okay.
So that source segregation is the second thing that each one of us can make a difference. Because if we do that, then the economic value for the waste goes up. And that's where the Swacchata Mitr stands to gain. Because once a PET bottle is thrown in the same dustbin where I've thrown the old vegetables and the soiled sanitary pads and diapers, that plastic PET bottle can never be used ever again.
Right.
So it has become a waste, and the only destination for it is a landfill. But if I have segregated that better, then the Swacchata Mitr will get a 20 rupees a kg for that PET bottle. Correct. And their livelihoods will become. So recognizing and acknowledging the Swacchata Mitr, doing a better quality segregation at source are two things that we can do as individuals.
Correct. Correct.
And as a civil society, I think it is about saying that how do we stop exploiting them? How do we make sure that they get the dignity they need? Whether it is about banks making it easier for them to open bank accounts, or municipal corporations making it easier for them to get an address proof, which can lead to an identity proof, which can lead to a bank account, which can lead to a formalization of their economic value. And the last piece is for corporates who are the donors, so to say, where the CSR money is going, should also start looking at impact matrix to say that where is the money going and what impact is that driving.
Okay.
And if they start asking these questions, that how many Safai Mitra have benefited and how have they benefited, and what matrix are we driving, what ones around health, which ones around education, which ones around livelihood are we driving, then the whole economic value for the money spent there has gone up drastically. And then the money getting misused to distribute these notebooks to children who never go to a school, or distributing these fancy soaps to a community which does have a problem with water, all of that will start changing. So I think, and last but not the least, for the government, it is important to recognize that this is a very large community.
Yes.
So for societal reasons, they need to recognize. And in today's world, for political reasons, they need to understand that this is a large community. Because this is a community which today also quite often does not have the right to vote because they are migratory. They are living in a place which is far away from their original place of living. They do not have registration in their voter lists. So the political system is also losing out today on a large community of people and their voices.
Correct.
So I think each strata of the society, starting from us as an individual all the way to the government, each has a role to play.
Absolutely.
And I think we all need to play this as an orchestra, because this is a symphony. If it's not played as a symphony, it is going to be a lot of noise. But if it's played as a symphony, it is going to be a beautiful orchestra which all of us will enjoy.
Yes, sir. Yes, well said. Because as you are saying here, ensuring minimum pay and enabling authorized access to waste are essential next steps. And imagine, let's consider, as you said, a completely different situation here, where we are doing segregation in a very proper way at our homes, as at its source. Then it will be a huge jump, as you said, in the volume of dry waste and for recycling. And these rag pickers, they will have a chance to become, a uniform community.
And they'll earn more.
Yeah, they learn more.
They'll get an economic upliftment, and that will change their lives.
Correct.
Plus they are not, they are spending their time segregating these diapers and, sanitary pads. They are really spending time in these, economic value waste, which can go to recyclers, and the amount of material that will be available to recyclers is also going to go up drastically.
Absolutely. It will be a huge jump.
Because today, all that is gone into a landfill. Now, suddenly, if, we can divert, a few thousand metric tons of waste from a landfill to a recycler, it's created so much economic value for the whole society at large.
Yes. So do you know any of organizations? There are many, I'm sure, that are doing a great job with our Safai Mitr and also trying to create awareness towards waste segregation at source?
There are many organizations are doing that. Recycle Foundation are doing some outstanding work in trying to create economic models which will benefit this community. There are organizations which doing this work in the e-waste community, like the Karo Sambhav. There are people who are doing this in the corporate world, like Sahas Zero Waste.
Right.
There are very many organizations. Sustainability is a large player in this space. So a lot of people are doing work. But I think what is needed for a country of our size is each of these multiplied by 25. Right. If not many more, because the problem is so large that I think we need to find the solutions also at the same scale as the size of the problem.
Yes.
And I think that we have quite a distance to cover, because what every organization is doing is still very small compared to what the size of the problem is.
So we have come to end of our session, as we are moving towards end of our discussion, I have two more questions to ask you. One is, what are the common habits that a common man can reverse to uplift these people?
So I think one, like I said earlier, is I would say two things that a common human being can do. One is to recognize the Swacchha Mitr. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but that is the crux of the problem as an individual, that I know my Swacchha Mitr. I know the condition that they live in. I know the condition they operate in. And I know where is their future generation headed.
Right.
I can then make a difference, because in each of these things, as an individual, each of us can make a difference. But for me to make a difference, I need to understand them better. So the first step is to know your Swacchha Mitr. And the second thing that we can do is the source segregation.
Correct.
That how do we, because we are the waste generators. So the problem begins with us.
Yes.
Once we mix the waste, then the entire chain thereafter can do nothing about it.
Correct.
So the source segregation is the second thing. So I think as individuals, it is our responsibility. It is our duty to do both these things. It's not a favor that we are doing by doing either of the two. We need to do both, because without these both, our generations coming after us are doomed.
Absolutely. So what is that one thing that you reversed in your lifestyle or throughout the process to be a better citizen?
So I think, again, two things that I have done there. One, I think as a home, we have adopted to better segregation. So we segregate all our waste into 5 different categories. So it's no longer restricted to solid and wet. Even the solid waste is segregated into 5 different categories. Plastic is separate, paper is separate, metal is separate, e-waste is separate. So all of these things, and cloth and fabric is separate. So all these are done so that when the waste goes to a Swacchha Mitr, they don't have to waste their time. Plus they can get better economic value. So I think one is an adoption that we have done for the last few years of segregating the waste at source. And the second thing I think that we have done, which is kind of made a difference, is to understand this community. Going back to the same 2 questions, that what do they need, and then try in our individual capacity of what we can do to help them.
Right.
Now, whether that help is to give 120 people a pair of footwear, whether that help is giving them an opportunity to paint their future. And I think something as trivial as that made such a big difference to those 120 children. And I was shocked and amazed that a 9-year-old so-called child of a rag picker, who we in our privileged mindset think do not understand the world, drew a home which had a swimming pool, a solar panel, and a wind power on the top of the house. And here I'm saying, how many of the privileged children at the age of 8 or 9 can think of all of this?
No.
But that child does not have access to make any of that happen thereafter. So it's not the imagination that's the problem. They have the imagination, they have the knowledge. The problem is access that they do not have. So what can we as individuals do? So we as a family work towards providing that access. Where is that possibility for us to provide that access? And this does not need to be something that you need to spend lakhs and crores of rupees. This is something which you need to spend small amounts, but very targeted, very focused, what they need. When winter is coming, if you give them a warm cloth, that is what they need, rather than some fancy t-shirt.
Correct.
if they are walking bare feet, a pair of slippers is what they need rather than some fancy soaps. And a pair of slipper may not cost you more than a few ₹100. So it's not some big thing that you need to do. But understanding that, I think, is so. Those are what I would say are things that we have made a difference in our lives to see how their lives can become better.
Yes, sir. It is the harsh reality that these rag pickers or Safai Mitra, we are not giving them any kind of respect or dignity here, but we, the reverse team, would like to take a moment and salute these champions of our environment who are silently giving their services to us, irrespective of all that is meted out to them. So, and we, yes, here. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for talking on this crucial subject that needs to be addressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for actually taking that effort, because I think the world needs a lot more of such conversations, because the awareness is where it all starts. And if you and me make this a conversation in every household, I think even if we can do it in 10% of the households in India, I think there will be a big difference that can happen. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for focusing on this topic of benefiting the Safai Mitra. And thank you to all of your listeners. And do remember those 3 questions. Do go and ask your Safai Mitra tomorrow morning who they are, what's their name, where do they live.
First thing in the morning. And please, the audience, remember that the Safai Mitra exist. They do exist. So thank you.
And you exist because they exist.
Yes.
So thank them for it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ravi. Thank you. Bye-bye.